In this lesson, we will do some quick data analysis and organization by using sparklines, subtotals, and outline our data. So this really wraps up the summarize and organize data objective here for the 727. So I've got this spreadsheet here. I've got this tab in this workbook. It's called 2019 EV Sales. And I've gotten this data from this website here. You can quickly duplicate the same thing, or you can use the spreadsheet that is included with the course. So what we will do is that I will use sparklines to identify some trends and to graphically represent those trends. So I'll just type in trends right here in cell H3. I am going to insert a sparkline. Now, there's a couple of different ways you could do this. One of the ways is that you could just simply go to the Insert tab of the ribbon, and then you have this sparklines grouping right here. So I'm going to click on the line sparkline, and then it'll bring up this dialog box, and it says, what is the data range that you want to graphically represent? So we'll just quickly chart this data by clicking and dragging the range here. And then the bottom of this dialog box says choose where you want the sparklines to be placed, and that is $H, $4. Those are variables, meaning that once you create this sparkline graph, this is something that can be easily auto-filled to other places within that column. So I will click on OK, and there is the sparkline. Now, of course, you could make more space for that sparkline if you want to, but again, there's a quick graphical representation of the data that you're seeing, the trends from January, February, March, and April, and so on. Now, again, I can use this autofill handle and do that, and now I've created sparklines for each of the model sales for each month in 2019, and that's exactly an instance where you might use a sparkline to extract meaningful information out of a bunch of rows and columns of numbers. Now, once you've created the sparklines, you will see immediately that you have the sparkline tools. You're taken over to the design tab of the ribbon, and you can apply different styles if you want to with just a single click. You can identify high points or low points. And in each of these cases, the high point is in March when some tax incentives expired. So there you go. If you wanted to change the sparkline, of course, you can select either a single cell or a range of cells, and you can change the type, for example, to something like that. So that's how you do a sparkline, how you add a sparkline chart and then quickly modify that sparkline chart if you want to. Now that we have added sparklines, let's go ahead and add subtotals, and in so doing, we will also outline data that's in our spreadsheet. So before we do this, I'm going to make a quick change to this column heading here, and I just want to have the word make. So that'll come into play when we create our subtotals, and we'll do that by going to the Data tab of the ribbon and giving the Data tab a click. Over on the right-hand side are your outline groupings, and one of those buttons is Subtotal. So to start with a subtotal, I recommend that you start with a selection of a range. So I'll select the range, including the column headers here, and I'll click on Subtotal. That brings up the Subtotal dialog, and now it will add subtotal rows at each change in the make column heading, but I could also do the same thing at each change in model. So what it's looking at here is how are we grouping up the data. So you may want to sort the data. This happens to be sorted, pre-sorted in the way I want it to. So all the Tesla makes are at the top, and then the Nissan, and then the Chevrolets. So again, I'll make the selection, subtotal at each change in make. Now use the function. Now if I'm subtotaling, generally you want to use the function sum, and then add subtotal to, and where do you want to add the subtotals? So just for the months of April, March, February, January, you have that ability to make your selections here in this dialog box. And then finally, take note of this last item here, summary below the data. And I'll show you what that means here in just a second. So I'm going to select January, February, make sure that January, February, March, and April are selected, and click on OK. And then there's that summary line, the grand total. But you see the subtotals, and then you also see this area off to the left. That is the outline view, or the outlining that has been created within your spreadsheet here. So these items are clickable. You have this 1, 2, 3 level of outline that is in the spreadsheet. So if you wanted to hide the Nissan numbers, you could do that. If you wanted to hide the Tesla numbers, you could do that and just see the Tesla totals. So you have this way to collapse and expand. If you just want to see the grand total, you click on that first level of data. So you have this way to collapse and expand items that are within your spreadsheet. So imagine looking at sales figures for region or per salesperson. So there's of course, thousands of different permutations of this where summarizing your data using either an outline, subtotals, or both can be very helpful. Now, if you wanted to undo your subtotaling here or any kind of outline view of the data, you could click on this ungroup and clear the outline, but you could also add additional fields in your subtotaling. So you could click on this again, and this time just change the function to average, and I don't want to replace my current subtotals. So I could do that, and then it would give me the Tesla average and the Tesla total, and then of course I could change and round these up so that they are not fractional numbers here, and once again extract some meaningful information. So as a last note here, if you wanted to manually group up and create an outline from data, so if you want to take all of your Tesla makes and create a manual outline, you could group them and group them by rows with that range selected. Click on OK, and now you'll be able to collapse, and you have collapsed all your data about the individual makes of Tesla and the Tesla average, so that maybe you just wanted to see that, and then if you needed to drill down into additional information, you could. So that can be done with the group, it can be undone with the ungroup, or probably the easiest way to do it is if you just clear your outline like that.